Hello, everyone. Welcome to Millie Chan TV, and welcome back to our call to action. Today, we will be talking about the presidential debate, and we will also be discussing how social media plays such a big part in the election. Our special guest today is Jasmine Harris. Jasmine was the Black Media Director for Chuck Schumer, and before she was the Digital Director for the House Democrats in Michigan. So today she is director of Black Media for the White House. So welcome, Jasmine. Thank you for
Thank you
being
so
here.
much for having me. I love talking with Black women, so I'm happy to be on today to discuss the debate and this election and why it's so important, particularly for us.
Yes, yes, we will get into that. And before you go today, I do want to ask you what were your thoughts about it and all that jazz. But
Yeah, oh,
go ahead.
oh no, sorry. Yeah, I think the first debate provided America a chance to really see the contrast between the two candidates. You have Donald Trump, we know, who is an avid liar, and he got on that stage and lied for an hour straight. And you have Joe Biden, who got on that stage and laid out the facts. And the facts is, as it relates to Black voters specifically, is that no administration in modern history has put us at the forefront like they have. That's why we have record low Black unemployment, millions of new jobs created for our workers. We have Black owned small businesses starting up at historic rates. Black child poverty was cut in half during the pandemic. Billions, invested in our nation's HBCUs, which are responsible for so many of our nation's Black doctors and lawyers and teachers and nurses. Really, this administration has put Black America at the forefront like we've never seen. And so, when you have that contrast, it was laid out bare on that debate stage. And yes, the president, had a slow start, but it's not. The presidency is more than a 1 hour debate. It's really about the records and the administration of what they have delivered. We all know that Black people, we're a show me people. You got to show us what you've done for us lately.
Right.
And the President Biden has a long record to run on of deliveries for Black America specifically. And so I was happy that he was able to highlight some of that. I was happy to see Black Twitter come to his defense in the way that they did, in such a strong way. I think one of the strongest, ways that we've seen on this campaign such far, not only in defense of Joe Biden, but really just calling Trump out for the racism. Black jobs trending and has continued to trend for the last 4 days. And so,
Yes.
we've really made this debate a cultural moment. And I think we're a caring people. We like an underdog. We like sticking up for folks. And so, we're making it clear we're not just going to let Donald Trump try to bully Joe Biden, especially considering how Joe Biden has had our backs in such a strong way over these last 4 years.
Well, those who have come in, welcome to everyone. Who you're listening to is Jasmine Harris. And Jasmine is the director of Black Media for the White House. And we also have Double D Mother, Tiffany. This is one of the creators that we all know and love. And we have Just El Murasaki. She is a great content creator. She and I do reviews and pop culture. And we are just here to have a conversation and get everybody knowledgeable, I'll say that,
Mhm.
about what's going on at this point in time. So right now I'm going to let you listen to Jasmine because we've discussed at length, some of us, about how people are receiving their news. There are people who don't know what President Biden is doing. There are people who are just listening to Elle and I do reviews
Mhm.
and not even know what's going on in the political world right now. So I invited Jasmine and I appreciate her for being here. So I'm going to let her talk about the impact of social media and where you can go to really get an understanding.
For sure. So first, let me start off. I think it's important. I listed out some of the accomplishments at the top of this, but I think it's important because our folks particularly over-index on receiving their news from platforms just like the one that you all have created. It's important for me to lay out the facts right now for your listeners. 4 years ago, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made specific promises to our community, promises to progress us forward in a way that we really needed it to be done, and so they've done that. And so you have record low Black unemployment right now. You have millions of new jobs created. You have Black owned small businesses starting up at the fastest rate in 30 years. You have Black child poverty cut in half during the pandemic. You have $16 billion in investments for our nation's HBCUs. You have over 100 billion forgiven in student loan debt. And folks think that that's just like a broad stroke thing. But what we have to understand is that Black Americans disproportionately have to take out loans, whether it's for our children or whether it's for ourselves for college. And so by forgiving so many billions in student loan debt, we're working to directly close the racial wealth gap. The racial wealth gap has been closed by 60% since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have taken office. And we really have to understand like that's not a small feat. We have more Black Americans with healthcare coverage than ever before under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And that's at a time when Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are obsessed with repealing Obamacare, not because of the healthcare impact, but because it's the signature accomplishment of the first Black president.
Correct.
And so when you have, Joe Biden has the most diverse cabinet in history. You have the first Black woman vice president. And he took the one Supreme Court nominee that he had and nominated the first Black Supreme Court justice in Ketanji Brown Jackson, who represents all of us so very well. And so when you have that type of record, it's just so important for us to show up for this administration again in November, simply for ourselves. Simply because if we don't, everything that I just mentioned on day one, we know what Donald Trump is going to do as soon as he steps foot. He's going to roll back all of that progress. And we can't keep this back and forth of making progress and having it reversed and we can't keep doing that. We have to continue voting with our best interest at heart. And doing that this election means getting behind Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And one thing I did forget that is so important for us when we look at our communities and we look at gun control and all of that. And, some of us are parents on this call wanting to have, be sure that our kids' schools are safe when they're sending them to school every day, and all the crime that we're seeing in our neighborhood. Joe Biden passed the first sweeping gun control legislation that we've been able to pass in 30 years. In contrast, we know Donald Trump is best friends with the folks at the NRA, and he's working to put guns back in our communities to make it less safe. And so it's just about all the issues that we care about most this administration has delivered. And so the question that you specifically asked was about, a lot of folks don't know about a lot of what I just said. And I think it's a two-pronged thing. The first is that people don't really like politics. Even, myself, like when I tell people what I do, the first thing they're like, why do you want to do that? Like, it doesn't stress. Yeah, it stresses me out. No, yes, it's a stressful thing, but I'm also a mother. Like, I also want to work to make sure that my daughter is living in a world that's easier for her, that's more inclusive of her than the one that I grew up in and the one that my mother grew up in, and so on and so forth. And so because people don't really like politics, it's not something that people really, people barely like to bring it up when they're out to dinner, let alone have it be on their news feed and their social media feed every day. And so because of that, I think folks typically are choosing, those who are politically active will choose to follow White House administrators and the president and so on and so forth on social media. But if you don't really want to see that, that's not what you're going to do. Black folks typically over-index on receiving our news across social media, which means that they are choosing sites that aren't always going to report on politics and what is going on. And so a lot of this disinformation that we have and folks just not being aware of all of the positive things that this administration has done is just because they're choosing news outlets out of the party that does a politics. So I promise I'll address that. They're choosing news outlets that aren't going to over-index on delivering this information because it's not going to get clicks, and folks just don't want to they don't want that boggled down their social media feed boggled down with all of this. And so that's why it's imperative for jobs like mine that work with Black media outlets specifically. And so the outlets that the main ones that you all are aware of, Essence and BET and Shade Room. These are cultural outlets, but that also report news. And so what makes my job easier is that because it's an election cycle, they are going to report on politics more than they ever would because people are invested because it's an election year. But over the last 4 years, people aren't paying attention because it's not an election year. There's no need for them to need to know what's going on. What I can say is that I'm proud of these outlets, especially the Black-owned ones, for making sure that they are reporting this because they understand how crucial of an election this is. And so even the Shade Room, y'all have to realize that they are reporting more on politics than they ever have because it's an election year. And so, but for better or for worse, right? We all can have our opinions on what they are doing or what they aren't. But we have to understand that there is no social media or news site right now that has a larger reach into our community than the Shade Room. I would be doing a disservice with my job by not developing a relationship with them, because it is my job to make sure that our community is receiving the information that they need. So I have to have relationships and strong relationships with outlets like yours, with the Shade Room, with BT, and doing whatever we can to insert our message into these platforms. We like to say going where culture already is. And so our campaign specifically, our North Carolina team was on the ground at J. Cole's Dreamfield Festival. Unfortunately, Usher's Lovers and Friends Festival was canceled, but we had a huge partnership with them to do on the ground engagement with folks that were going to be at the festival. We're doing the same thing with Roots Picnic and Essence Fest. I'm getting on a flight in a couple days to go down there to make sure that the DNC, the CBC, and our campaign is on the ground there, engaging at the largest gathering of Black women in the country, period. We're doing the same with NBA Summer League, that focuses on Black men specifically. Engaging and develop relationships with online cultural podcasts like Nightcap with Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco or Cam Newton. Having relationships with these outlets who don't at all have any type of political arm, because we know that this is where Black voters are and this is what they are tuning into on a daily basis. It's imperative that we develop relationships and try to insert our messages in using these platforms. And so we know that there's a lot of disinformation out there. We know that folks don't have all the information. And so our campaign, I think, in a very culturally competent way, because we have folks on our team that are culturally competent in a way that Donald Trump does not, are utilizing these moments and these huge cultural platforms to insert our message. And even, I don't know if you saw, like, the Shade Room was part of the president's press pool over the weekend at the debate. Like, moments like that are important, because if they don't have that access, if the outlets that we all frequent don't have the access, then there's no way that we can possibly get the message across.
Well,
sorry, I know that was long-winded, but
no. We appreciate it. That's why you're here, because we need to hear from you, and we want to hear from you because people who are. I saw somebody's comment, like, how does it get out to different people if content creators don't get it out? I do talk about it more on my page now. I don't just drown my audience, but I will bring it up. But I have to welcome the Zactivist.
Just Zach. Hey.
Hi, Zach.
So Zach is here, and Zach is a very political content creator. And if there's anything, because I go to Zach now, if there's anything that you need to know, his TikTok and his Instagram is full of information. He delivers it funny, but it is very thought-provoking. And also Tiffany, she's really good in that. Her her political hot topics are fantastic.
I love that.
So there was somebody that had a question here a few minutes ago, Jasmine, about how do you get that across, and you said you would address it.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of what I just said, right? Like, developing relationships with these cultural outlets and making sure that they have the information and the access, right? And so when I'm sure you saw over the weekend, a big thing with the debate was that CNN chose not to provide credentials to Black owned or operated media outlets. So who was going back and forth with CNN all week, the week leading up to the debate, trying to get our outlets access? Me. At the top of the week, I started getting emails or whatever, calls from folks, our Black owned outlets, our Black operated outlets, like, hey, can you help me get credentials? And so one thing to note is that CNN hosted that debate. We had to abide by all of their rules and regulations for that debate. We didn't even receive our own credentials until the day before the debate. Okay. And so everything went through them. And so outlets were responding to me, and I'm like, that's weird. You should have already had outreach happen. You should have already had your credentials. And so then we started doing our own outreach from the campaign with CNN, and they were standing on it. The deadline had passed, and they weren't, giving outlets. Not even the local Black owned paper in Atlanta had credentials, and they were aware of this, and they stood on that decision. And so how do we get the message across? One is just having an advocate, having this role. So even though CNN stood on that, most outlets would not stand on that. Most folks are going to work with us to make sure that Black owned media, Black operated media has access. And so that's something that our campaign is very, very aware of. Every time the president or the vice president is traveling and we have press pulled events, we're always doing outreach to the local Black-owned media there to make sure, hey, we're reserving 2 spots. If it's 5 spots, 2 to 3 spots for the local Black-owned media specifically. Do you want to press? Do you have somebody that can come cover it? And so just being aware and making sure that these outlets have access and have the information. And then it's up to them how they choose to then just, to get that information out there. But one of the biggest things is just access and making sure that we're doing our own outreach to these outlets and letting them know, hey, you have a friend in us. Whatever you need, however we can be your advocate, we want to do so, because we need the Black press. We need the Black media, whether they're political focused or not. We need you all to get this message across. And so I'm very thankful to all of you on the call that are letting folks know, the information and doing your due diligence and on your own platforms and your own communities, because we know, like, I'm a Biden campaign spokesperson, right? So when people hear from me, they know that I'm going to talk in a way that is positive about the Biden administration. But you all, y'all have no bearing to anyone. And so as you relay the message, y'all are trusted sources as well. People are going to go to you, whether it's your family and friends, whether it's your followers or whoever, because they trust you. Y'all have a bond. We need y'all.
I was in South Carolina, I think it was in April, and people that I know from North Carolina, and if there's anyone in here from North Carolina, I wanted to say that they have found a new way to suppress the vote. They were voting locally when I was there, and people whose IDs expired now through this year, they could have a backlog. So if you don't have a passport, if you don't have a voter registration, I think you can mail it in. That is a way to suppress the vote. And I think people get discouraged a lot when things like that happen.
And I understand getting discouraged, but I think, we're strong people. We have to understand stuff like that should piss you off to make you want to vote even more, because decisions like that don't come out of thin air. Right. That's why, like, our state level courts and our state politicians and all of that matter, because they make those decisions. One thing that people don't know, Joe Biden has put more Black women on the federal bench than every other president combined. He's literally putting us on the courts, at the top of the courts, to help make the decisions, like, if my ID is expired or my passport is expired, can I still vote? Because what Donald Trump is the opposite. He loaded the courts up with MAGA Republicans, people that think just like him, if not worse, who are instilling laws like this to make it harder for us to vote. We all know all of this is systematic. And Joe Biden knows that as well, which is why he's doing things like loading the bench up with with Black women and with Black judges, period. And so that's why it's just so important to vote. Like, we have to vote with our best interests at heart, and having the information so that we can make those decisions is so important.
We all know that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. We all know that voting is important. Something that I've noticed about this particular election cycle is that the conversations are all very elevated, very stat forward in a way that they haven't been in the past. However, there's still an influx of young voters. My young one plays tennis, and her tennis program goes all the way through 18. And I've spoken with, and I speak to people who see, like, I'm not voting for either one of those old men, or if Cardi B isn't voting, I'm not voting either. While all of these statistics that you have given us, we know to be true, we sitting here as homeowners, mothers, parents, people who run houses, it's very important, and it's very important to our future. How do you talk to somebody and get them to the polls when they're not even at a point in their life where they're really thinking about the future, or where the things that we're talking about affect them at this present moment?
Right. I would ask them, what issues do they care about most? Is it climate change? Is it the war in Gaza? Is it student loan forgiveness? Is it, like, what is the issue that you care about the most, that you want to see change in? And 9 times out of 10, the issue that they tell me about, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's administration and the Democrats that they work with, who are, Maxwell Frost is one of our leading surrogates, who's the youngest member of Congress, a Black man, all of these things. They are on the right side of the issues that these young folks care about most. And so having those conversations and getting trusted voices who they who they care about, like a Maxwell Frost, or like some of the influencers like you all that we're working with, and their social media platforms, and trying to utilize them to get the message across in a way that resonates with younger voters. But the first thing I always start with, and I mean, that really resonates with any voter, no matter the age. What's the issue that you care about? Okay, all of this stuff that I just listed off that don't matter to you, what does matter to you? Okay, let's talk about where Joe Biden stands on that issue, so you understand if you want to vote with your best interest at heart on the issue that you care about, then your vote will still be for Joe Biden, regardless of his age, because it's not just Joe Biden that runs the White House. It's an entire administration, and that administration right now looks a lot like us.
Okay.
And that's something that I think is really, really important to emphasize over and over and over, that you have two choices to be the president of the United States of America. You have someone who is going to continue to do the traditional role of the president, which is in many ways a major figurehead for our country, but whose most important job is to put people in place who can do amazing things in their area. People that can handle commerce, that can handle trade, that can handle defense, that can handle the treasury, the real issues, and you're picking the best people. And that's what President Biden has done, as we're seeing clearly with Jasmine right here, and a number of other great people that we've met. And then you have another person who is sitting here saying, I'm going to become the president again. I've learned what I didn't get to do last time because I wasn't a dictator. I wasn't having an authoritarian regime. But now I'm going to be that dictator, and I'm going to transform the position of president through this Project 2025 agenda. And I'm going to make America what I want it to be finally, because I'm going to have the power to do it. And I have a Supreme Court in place that I put in place 4 years ago that are going to allow me to do whatever I want to do. The stakes are so high that I can't, and again, you're right. It is elevated. And I really regret that people aren't willing to get out there and get above it, but we've got to continue to do our part and push forward. And for everyone on this live, whether you're seeing it now or you're seeing it later, it's your time to get involved in a fight and share information. Even if you do not create content, share the content that you see.
Right.
And I know, we love the Shade Room. I guess if you like it, I don't like them. They said too many negative things about my president. They said too many things negative about my vice president. So I ain't got nothing for them. But I will say
too many negative things about
CNN,
women.
Too many negative things. CNN, the Shade Room, every single platform out there. This weekend, it was Pod Save America. When they come out and they attack our president, or specifically our vice president, to me, it's our time to hit those platforms and start to deplatform those people. I unsubscribed to the New York Times and the AJC both this weekend. Something to save me $10 a week because of the editorials they chose to run. That is our work as the public, to deplatform and let these people know and hit them where it hurts in their pockets. If you don't support democracy, then I can't support you.
I was going to ask you, Jasmine, that same question. How does that stand where, yes, the Shade Room is a Black owned and operated social media entity, the same with Shannon Sharpe Nightcap. Nightcap is hosted by a man who has a DV a history of DV on his record. They have said plenty disgusting things about Black women to date. We can go to Simone Biles, Amanda Seales, the list goes on. In a world where we also understand elections are important, but clicks and shares and that is currency. Where do we stand in now promoting the message of the president and all of this, while also kind of like rewarding them for their bad behavior? They now have this interview. They now have access to this administration who says that they stand for these things. But now we're going to a platform where the host is a womanizer.
I think that two things. The first is that everybody on this call has said we have to use social media to get the message out. We have to use platforms with a large reach to get the message out. And so, one, I'm not doing my job well if I am not making sure that the outlets that I know for a fact have reach within our community don't at least have the information to give out to our community. How they choose to do that is on them. And it's up to you all, like Zach just said, to hold them accountable in how they're doing that. But I have to make sure they have access to the information, because it is my job to do everything I can to make sure every Black American in this country is aware that no administration in modern history has delivered more for our people than this administration. The second thing is also, as someone who works directly with Black media, it's also my job to make sure that the people that are choosing which interviews we're doing and which interviews we're not doing are aware of all of the information. Hey, these are the contexts and the optics that you should be aware of as it relates to this interviewee, this platform XYZ. This is everything you need to know about this. We have a whole research team that every time we're doing an interview, they're providing the folks to make the decision, because we all know the buck does not stop with me. I'm not making that final decision, especially as it relates to a presidential interview. And so they have all the information that they need to be able to make that decision. But it is my job to flag things like, hey, this is the context around here. This is the cultural nuance of this platform, and how where they land right and where they've landed wrong, so that the person that is making the decision has all of the facts. But as a Black woman, as a mother of a Black daughter, I'm fully making sure that all of the context is provided. And that's my job, so that they can make the best decision about who we are giving access to and who we aren't. But because Black media outlets typically are not given the same access, as we saw CNN make the decision over the weekend, it's my job. I got to fight to make sure that every outlet, especially when it's Black owned, has the access to get that information out there.
One thing that was said, if I could just briefly interject, one thing that was said in the comments was about the campaign isn't getting the message out, or it's not being communicated. And I was guilty of feeling the exact same way until I really truly got to know people like Jasmine and these amazing people that work for the Biden administration. And I've come to learn that my God, they over communicate. Like they over communicate. The emails, the press releases, like it's overwhelming, because it's like every little thing is being shared because we've accused them of undersharing. The reality is the media is not willing to highlight the accomplishments. I want you to think about during the whole entire Donald Trump trial, MSNBC was on in my house because I work from home when I'm not traveling, and I witnessed all this ridiculous coverage about Donald Trump farting in court for a whole entire day. When during that exact same time frame, President Biden held two press conferences where he talked about sweeping legislation and amazing progress for American people that barely even got mentioned. That is a choice that mainstream media is making, and they're doing it to minimize the accomplishments of the Biden administration to further platform Donald Trump as news coverage.
And one thing I will say is, especially as it relates to our community, they don't always tell the narrative, traditional media outlets, in the way that it should be told. Even when you look at the debate over the weekend, everyone wants to focus on the slow start. Why is no one talking about, for 4 days straight on Black Twitter, what is trending? Black jobs, Black voters coming together to say that was racist. We don't mess with it. There has been traditional media outlet after traditional media outlet sending white reporters into our community to talk about how Black voters are going to turn their back on Joe Biden. But the second that Black voters come together in a real way, there's nothing bigger than Black Twitter. Come together in a real way on Black Twitter, to where now it's reaching national news. You have all the Black electors coming out saying, "Hey, I'm going to my Black job." Why isn't that what the focus is? You want to talk about Black voters? Let's talk about what Black voters are saying about the debate. Black voters are saying, we standing up for Joe Biden. Right. We're with him. We're rocking with him. He had a slow start. That's still our guy. He still delivered. And what Donald Trump said was racist. But yes, I have to watch, because I still have to work with these outlets. But at the end of the day, it's very, very frustrating for me, especially that
Jasmine, just let us know. We ain't got to work with them. We're ready. I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to fight every day.
Hello?
Real quick.
Let me know.
Do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I just wanted to say that, Donald Trump lied 30 times during the debate. 30 times. He took I believe that's the most times that anybody has lied during a presidential debate. It's absolutely disgusting, despicable. I was proud of our Black Twitter and all of the other platforms that came together with the Black jobs, because when that hit, oh, baby, I was already thinking of what I was going to make, because I already knew I was going to get that. But this is the thing. That's not the first time Donald Trump said that. I need everybody to understand that he's been saying that for the last few weeks at these events that Byron Donalds has been holding. He's been talking about Black jobs being taken by undocumented immigrants. He's been talking about this. I covered it, so I know that he was talking about it. But it really blew up when he said it at the presidential debate, which is great. I'm glad that it did, because people are now seeing it the way it really needs to be seen. But at the end of the day, he lied 30 times. He didn't answer a single question. So why was the headline for the media, Joe Biden needs to step down? Why was that the headline for the mainstream media? That is a
It
big
was
problem.
pre-planned. They had that ready. They had that in the barrel.
Absolutely. When I
So did
saw
Time.
Joe come out, I watched it live with my people, with my followers, and when I saw him come out, I said, "Come on, Joe, hit him." I was hoping I was going to get State of the Union Joe. When he was a little raspy, I was like, "Oh Lord, well, you know, we slow starting." But once he started really hitting him, when he told him, "Hey, don't talk about my son like that. My son is not a loser," I was like, "Oh yeah, Joe, he coming on back. He coming back in." You know, so what I want people out here to understand, you know, is that when you see things on social media, you can't always take it and say, "Oh my God, oh my God, you know, I gotta believe everything I see." Just because you see it on CNN doesn't mean that is law, that is true, that it should be what you wanted, that what's gonna guide your vote. You know what I'm saying? Do your own research. Look at some of us that are real people out here seeing this, that are talking about this, that are looking at all of the little things instead of just hitting you with a headline. Look at all of those things and make your decision from there. I think it was despicable what the major headlines this weekend was, that we should remove President Biden, besides hitting Donald Trump on every single lie that he told. CNN made it a point to point out what he had lied about after the debate. It didn't help anybody then. You know what I'm saying? So that was my whole point in that. I just think that I'm proud of Black Twitter for standing up. I'm proud of everyone for staying woke in this situation and understanding, hey, we got somebody out here that's telling us that we can only work low wage jobs, and it's damn ridiculous and a hot mess.
I think from what Tiffany was saying, that he's said that before. He's said black jobs before, but it wasn't in a conversation where we were present.
Engaged.
You know what I mean? Like Zach was there. Zach has probably heard it. And honestly, I've heard it in passing, but when you sit down and it's one-on-one and it's you listening to him, then it hits really hard. Like,
it's undeniable.
Whoa. So I don't care if it's the first time somebody heard it. I'm just glad they heard it. And I'm glad that I'm glad it has taken the effect that it has taken, because someone mentioned like his mental state. I think the president had been out of the country for a minute and he had come back in, and he was like, you know, he had his talking points the day of, like, you can't just, and too raw, too real. Kenny had mentioned it, like, he needs a break. You know, it was probably a little overwhelming, because one thing about Joe Biden, he has worked in our government for so long. He has been the vice president. He is now the president. I would put everything I have in him, due to the fact that I feel like Joe understands the government. I feel like he understands what people are wanting versus trying to get his lick back. And that's the problem. That's the problem. And you know, I just hope people really forget about the slowness. And the slowness is good, because maybe you'll have a chance to really listen to what he had to say. Because
I want everybody to also stop being doctors. Like unless you're actually a doctor, you can't diagnose this man with anything. You can't put anything on him. Like at this point, the reasons for not voting are just getting ridiculous. Either you're participating in this and you want to be an active part of what democracy looks like going forward post this election, right, or you want to sit there and you just want to let things happen to you. But like, make a decision and shut up, because the medical diagnosis is just too far.
You can't be mad if you don't vote. Right. You know, we have a big thing coming up here. Clarence Thomas is getting old, and Clarence Thomas could be out in the next
Samuel
4 years.
Alito.
Yeah, Samuel Alito, same thing. We got two Supreme Court justices positions that are going to may be filled in the next 4 years. Do you want to get the situation that we're in now with Donald Trump appointing those two positions? Absolutely not. Absolutely There's a lot on this ballot.
40 or 50-year-olds who are going to laugh.
Exactly. Their democracy is on the ballot. And you can't sit up here and say that you don't care for democracy when you that you're 18 years old and you still have your whole life to live. These are things that are not going to only affect you now, but they're going to affect you, your children, your great-grandchildren, grandchildren, 20, 40 years from now. You can't say I'm just going to throw up my hands and not vote. Okay. Right. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that even though we should take that into account, that our ancestors as Black people fought for us to have that position. But at the end of the day, democracy is literally on the ballot.
And Yeah, and I will say this, and then I'll hop off and let y'all continue the conversation. But for so long, people have said, y'all just want us to vote because our ancestors, fought for it, but that's not good enough. We need to do it because of now you have an administration that has delivered for y'all. Now you have one that really put us at the forefront. You have a Black woman for the first time in the White House, has elevated the Black maternal health crisis to the White House, has fought to make the delivery room safe for Black women. You have billions investments in our HBCUs. You have record low Black unemployment, Black-owned small businesses thriving, and an administration that has vowed to us, has given us our word, and we know they're good for it because they gave us their word 4 years ago and they've delivered, that they want to continue that progress. And on the other side, as this person just commented, you have someone who has vowed to be a dictator on day one, who we know is a known racist, who incited a riot at the Capitol, who during his time, Black unemployment skyrocketed. That was the lowest amount of Black Americans with health insurance that we've ever seen before. He dined with white nationalists all the time. This is the man that took out a full page ad in the New York Times calling for the death penalty of 5 innocent Black boys at the time. Mm-hmm. That's what you have on the other side. And so if there was no other time that made more sense for you to show up and vote in your best interest, it is now. It is this November. I appreciate y'all time. If you need me again, have me on. I appreciate genuinely the work that y'all all do.
Jasmine, the Blackbeard News must be at the DNC as a content creator. That's the platform that we need to get her there. So as you talk to platforms, I know some of my content creator friends we all apply to be with the DNC to get credentialed as content creators. And I know some of them are getting picked up by like the Shade Room and Hollywood Unlocked and Revolt, where they're sponsoring them to go. We need to make sure that we get some Blackbeard News up in there too.
Please give me all the information I need to make this happen. Just get it to me, please.
Jasmine, before you go, Jasmine, for people who want to follow you to see what it is that you do or what you have to say, can you please let us know where we can follow you?
Yes. So my Instagram is private because my baby is on there, and y'all know it's crazy people out there. But my Twitter is very much open and public. At JNH on TW. Follow me on Twitter. Engage with me there. Always putting out information, highlighting Black media, doing their due diligence, and making sure that the message is out there. And again, thank y'all. Let's vote in November. Let's send Joe Biden and Kamala back to the White House so they can continue delivering for us.
Thank you, Jasmine. I'll be in.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Millie Chan.
Yes, sir.
One thing I want to say and address, if I can, this is like the most important thing to me, is all the ridiculous calls from white media asking and saying that Joe Biden needs to step aside.
Right.
And people are so ill. I'm going to post this video as soon as we conclude. Like after this, I'm going to go back live on TikTok. You guys, of course, can join. I hope I don't get banned again.
I know. I was going to say this time, just use some layman terms.
Common sense. Just use some common sense and not get mad.
I think you were really hyped last time.
I was mad.
Yeah, well, once Zach get in his feelings, once they get the going, child, once that water get the revving, good luck.
Yeah, once the water, right.
Before you say that, Zach, I will say this. I hate Kenny's not here. He wasn't able to make it, but I wanted to give him so many props because his post about Van Jones, I think I watched it 100 times.
I'm screaming. I didn't see it.
It was excellent.
Oh, it was a masterpiece.
Kenny eats Van Jones up every time Van Jones opens his foolish mouth.
Oh my
Van
God.
Jones better not even breathe wrong if Kenny's coming. Did you see the one he made about what's the influencer?
Oh
James?
My God, James Charles.
Oh my God.
He destroyed that bad Bill Butch body.
Oh my God.
It was great.
But go ahead, Zach.
Is that, a lot of, this is the thing I want people to understand. I know this is going to be crazy to hear. People don't want to, because people don't know. And I think that's a part of it. So many people are activated now that have never been activated with politics before, but they don't know. Debates, I hate to say it, y'all. Debates don't mean nothing. They just don't. Here's the thing. Debates are like the moneymaker for the media. It gives them something to talk about. It gives them something to cover. But when you look at how debates actually impact the American public, Hillary Clinton won all 3 of her debates and Donald Trump still became president. I hate to admit it, people, but Mitt Romney won 3 of his debates against Barack Hussein Obama in the rematch when he was running for re-election. And guess what? Barack Hussein Obama still continue
Became
to be our
president.
president.
That's
It has
right.
that's not the debates don't predict the president. But not only do debates not predict presidents, neither do these pundits on TV. Joy Reid isn't able to predict the president. Anderson
Mhm.
Cooper isn't able to predict the president. Jake Tapper is
Rachel Maddow.
that's not what right. They're not good at that. But let me tell you who is good at it. It's a man named Alan Lichtman. Alan Lichtman has predicted the correct president for the United States of America for more than 60 years. And he has a formula called the 13 keys. And these keys turn that identify how a person is trending to be elected. And
Okay.
he has said definitively, he said it on CNN. I don't watch that network. I stopped watching CNN when they brought Donald Trump on for a town hall with Caitlin Collins and fired Don Lemon. I haven't watched that network since for anything specific to the news. But there's a black lady on there. She's very attractive. She interviewed Alan Lichtman immediately following this debate, hoping that Alan would say, yeah, maybe it's time for him to step down. And Alan said, that's the absolute worst thing that could happen to the Democratic Party. If Joe Biden steps down, we lose two of the keys that have already turned in the favor of the Democrats, and we're almost certain to lose. There
Right.
is no person in this country who has a better chance of being president for the Democratic Party other than Joseph Robinette Biden. All the primaries have been held. The people have spoken. I want you also, just last thing I'll say about this is consider. In these primaries, Joe Biden got 80% of the Democratic vote in every single one of them. But the same can't be said for Donald Trump. Just last week, the state of Colorado went to the polls, and that man only got 68% of all Republican votes, although there is no other Republican still in the race.
They still voted.
Republicans,
They still voted for
Republicans
Nikki
still
Haley.
voted for Nikki Haley. They still voted for Vivek Ramaswamy, and they still voted for Ron DeSantis. So the media would have you think that Democrats aren't excited about Joe Biden, when the reality is Republicans are not excited about Donald Trump. But not only are they not excited, they're not rallying behind him. After that, the debate performance, which no matter how you look at it, it wasn't great. It wasn't good. It wasn't a great night for Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Despite that, this man raised more money than Donald Trump. Democrats like me came out of our pocket and we put in $5, $25, $100 to see this man continue to fight and stay in the White House. I didn't give money to see anybody else get that ticket nomination. I gave that money for Joe Biden, just like every other small Democratic donor. We support Joe Biden, and we need to continuously let this mainstream media know that we're not being fooled by their nonsense, because them getting another candidate in place is a part of their plan to ensure that Donald Trump gets back in the White House.
Right.
But we also have to use critical.
They raised $33 million they raised since the debate.
We also have to use critical thinking skills, right? Because these same publications that will come out and say, oh, now's the time for Joe Biden to step down are also the same publications that chose not to say, oh, I don't know, the man charged with 32 felony counts, he shouldn't step down. 34, excuse me, he shouldn't step down. You know what I mean? These were also the same people who were like, well, let's just see how it goes when this man got caught on the tapes grabbing him by the P word. This is not our first rodeo with Donald Trump. This is not our first time seeing this man act unhinged in the media, and never once do we see publications like Time, like CNN, say that he should be pulled off the ballot, he should step down, he should make that decision. But Joe Biden has a slow start in a debate, which again we know has no determining factor on the vote, and all of a sudden there are these litany of calls for him to step down. And my question is, A, on what grounds, and B, at what point are you going to start using your critical thinking skills? If this, then why not this?
I don't even think it's about critical thinking skills, Elle. I think it's about, would you want a felon running the free world? I don't even understand why you have to go past that.
Or why this felon can run to be the leader of the free world, but in the 48 states where the felons can't vote, we haven't also
and he will be able to vote for himself in New York.
As long as he stays out of prison in New York, yes, he can.
That is insane. And now you have people, and I may not be able to list all of them, but on any application, a loan, an apartment, car, you have people like, are they going to change all applications across the United States of America? Because you would have to do that, right?
It would seem that way. But again, we are here having these conversations. where it seems like, and I know it's not as simple as saying like, okay, well now felons can vote. I understand that, but I'm saying it would seem like as soon as they said, oh, you're not going to step down, like y'all aren't going to pull him off of the ticket. Okay, well then we're going to start the ball rolling in this process so that these people, if the felon can participate in this manner, then the felon should be able to participate.
Right. Tiffany, and I talked about actual voting, and she's going to talk to you about the local level, because I've made the statement. I think people feel like when they vote for the president, they've done their job. And then they get the president, and then if it's a Democratic president, then Biden's not doing anything. Well, Biden's hands are tied because
we're not
you can vote on your local level. Go ahead, Tiffany.
You know, last week I saw a lot of people being shocked, shuddered, confused, and befuddled that the state of Louisiana would have a law where the 10 Commandments is going to be displayed in every single classroom. What we need to understand about this is done on the local level. Okay, we have an election every single year. You don't have an election every 4 years locally, statewide. You have an election every single year, and because we don't vote in our local election, where this is where we get our judges, our sheriffs, our chief of police, district attorneys, all of these positions. This is why we are seeing laws like this happen. Where they now have to display the 10 Commandments in classrooms. In Oklahoma, I believe they're now going to have to the teachers are going to be teaching the Bible. This right here was by the Oklahoma superintendent. This was something that he said that had to be done, or they wouldn't be able to receive funding. The schools that didn't do it. I don't understand this. So what I'm trying to, I've always held my platform on voting on your local level is just as important as voting for the president, because at the end of the day, those judges that are sitting in there judging whether you're gonna go to jail for a ticket or you're gonna pay a fine, you're voting for those things. That sheriff that can harass those teens for being at that park shooting water guns, you know what I'm saying? The district attorney that can decide whether to charge someone in a domestic violence situation. You have to vote on your state and local level. If you do not do that, voting for the president, of course it matters, but it matters just as much that you vote on your local and state level. You have to understand that. And I wanted to make sure that we talked about that in great detail, because if you don't want the 10 Commandments being displayed in your classroom, you better try to get out there and vote. Because there is definitely a conflict of separation of church and state there. I mean, I don't understand how they're going to allow that, but it is what it is. It was done on a local level. There's nothing that Congress can do about that other than pass a law. And right now, our hands are tied at that level too, because we got MAGA Republicans running the House of Representatives who introduced the laws that are passed over to the Senate and then signed into legislation by the president. Understanding how your government works is your civic duty.
Right.
Do it expeditiously if you don't know. Okay.
Just, and you know, like I'm not, you know, like some like me, like you find out, like I'll ask Tiffany something, or I know I can come to Zach and ask him something. If you are not sure, seek these people out and get an understanding about what is going on in your state, in your town, in your city, so that you understand. People that say that they're just not going to vote, I am so disappointed. I mean, disappointed.
I don't know how that one lady could say that she's not voting because she has kids whilst allegedly being pregnant with her third one. Like this makes absolutely no sense to me. And it's not about like, oh, you're a celebrity, what would other people think? It's about the fact that rhetoric is mirrored throughout regular everyday people. Oh, well, I don't support this one aspect, right? Like how Jasmine was saying, figure out what issue matters to you. Oh, I don't support the genocide, so I'm not voting. Or because I have kids and I don't.
But that issue is so important, but yet you're not willing to really understand and research the issue. You're not willing to sit down and read some books and really do a deep dive into the real geopolitical nature of that issue to understand both sides of that quandary. That's a concern. Somebody said in the comments that, they're not voting because it does for the national election doesn't matter. I just want to say this. We all lived through 2020. in the movement for Black lives. We all lived through the death of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor. And we all witnessed how local elections and the locally elected officials tried to hide information, tried to ensure that justice wasn't garnered. Daniel Cameron, the Republican Attorney General, a Black man of Kentucky, literally refused to prosecute the killers of Breonna Taylor. However, when President Biden got in office and named Attorney General Merrick Garland as his AG, it became the number one focus of the Department of Justice to get justice for Breonna Taylor. So even though Daniel Cameron wasn't willing to open an investigation, the DOJ investigated that case, and the DOJ got some level of justice, with the only level they could at the federal level for Breonna Taylor. The Biden Department of Justice was involved in prosecuting the Minneapolis Police Department for George Floyd, the Glenn County DA's office for Ahmaud Arbery, and also for what happened to Breonna Taylor. And also, again, there were 6 police officers in Rankin County, Mississippi, that had terrorized Black people in that community for decades. Also got justice for them. That would not have happened under a Trump administration. But not only would it not have happened, it's not going to happen if Joseph Biden is no longer president, because Donald Trump has already said he's going to shift the focus of the Department of Justice away from justice for Black and brown people and make it about prosecuting anti-white racism. This is a quote from his mouth. Donald Trump said he's going to make the Department of Justice focus on anti-white racism. That is racism against white people. That's going to be his focus. So when you sit here and you say, I'm not going to vote for in the national election because the Electoral College Act, that is some nonsense that you have picked up and heard from somewhere out there in the streets. Put it back on the streets and get out there and vote. And if you're not going to vote, just keep your mouth closed, because that's ignorant to say.
You can always focus on things later, right? Like, you can vote and still think that the Electoral College is stupid. You can vote and think that procedures and things need to change. When Obama ran on election day, I was on like the street team knocking on doors, making sure people got out. And they've got the organizer. And so one person said, well, what do we say to people when they ask us why they should come out of the house and vote? And that person said, their why could be whatever they need it to be. Tell them to come vote. Like, you know what I mean? At this point, specifically in this election, nobody respectfully cares why you're voting. Just go do it. Like, go cast the ballot, be an informed voter, get the information that you need, and then go cast a vote. Everything else can be handled on the other side of it.
And that's what I was going to say too. Like, I want people to follow. I want people to be informed, and that's why we're here today. But at the end of the day, when the day ends, you need to vote, and you need to vote. A vote for Biden is a vote for you, period. And I mean, because we don't have another option.
At the end of the day, when the day ends,
we don't have
another option.
Ain't it going in the vocabulary?
I love.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I appreciate Jasmine being here, and I appreciate her giving another level of understanding. And she is someone that people can follow and reach out and learn more. And I hope people just really, after that debate, when he said #Black Jobs, I was like,
but to be fair, we also thought he was done the last election when he said it the first time running, when he made the comment about Latinos cleaning bathrooms.
Well, I was so happy that he said that, because I was sitting there and I was like, well, what is that? And I have to give a big shout out to Tiffany, because your videos about you going to your Black job,
that was top tier, wasn't it? That was top tier, wasn't it? I know. I worked hard on them.
Because what is that? Right?
I don't know.
No, seriously.
What is it?
No.
And people should really get upset about that, because if you've never, you can assume Donald Trump is racist, you can assume anything, but you saw him on the television be racist.
Listen, I like I told y'all before, I covered Donald Trump in these events that are going on with Wesley. What's his last name? Wesley Hamilton. What's his name? Wesley Bell. Wesley and Byron Donalds. They're going around.
Oh,
The
a different
representative.
Wesley. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
okay, I'm sorry.
They're going around doing these little events in different black spaces, basically invading black spaces. The first one they did like a little cigar bar or whatnot, where they had several. It was supposed to be a whole to talk to black people, but again, it was a room that was filled with mostly white people, and they had the room all filled up. And he said that with these pictures and stuff like that, the blacks for Trump and all this kind of thing, his mugshot. Donald Trump comes on there and he says the same old thing. Oh, the blacks love me because I have a mugshot. They're selling my mugshot. They're making money off of it. I don't care. I seem to have a lot of support in them. He starts talking about Section 8, what he did for Section 8. He claims that he did Section 8 housing before, and that people would come up to him and tell them how they wanted to pay something on their rent, but the government program didn't allow it. It was taken away from other people and all this kind of stuff. These are the things that Donald Trump
him and his daddy have cases for racially profiling their tenants.
Well, he said they built Section 8 housing. That's what he said. I don't have any record of that, but that is one of the things that he's been saying. In these black spaces, y'all, it is very important that we pay attention to what he's saying, even though he's not talking to a majority black audience when he's doing this. They can't fill it with the majority black audience because, contrary to what people are saying, the black voter is not going over to Donald Trump. No. Let's just it's not a large what do they call it, influx or a large migration of black people that are going over, because if that's the case, then they should be able to fill up a church. They should be able to fill up a cigar lounge. They should be able to fill these places up if there's a large influx of black people. They try to get you with that. Oh my God, there's other black people that are voting for Donald Trump. I gotta vote for him too. They try to trick you with that. That's like that's like a subliminal message that they're putting out there. So he goes into these spaces. He did it at a church. He said the same thing, Section 8, this this whole thing about his mugshot and all this stuff. He talks to them about the same exact thing. Never lines out even any policies, even when they ask him for specific policies, he never does. You put Joe Biden in that same room, Joe Biden, y'all call him old and incompetent or whatever, but he could rattle off every doggone policy that he has done, what he plans to do, every single time. But Donald Trump can never do that. He talks to black audience about Section 8, food stamps, his mugshot, because he thinks we're all criminals, thugs, and we want to live off the government. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. A vote for Donald Trump is a vote for a racist. I said what I said.
And that's that.
But also, it was what he says to the audience. It's what he says when he's engaging with these black people that he invites. He did one of the events, and I don't know the two black men that he had on stage, but these black men come in with the horse veneers in their mouth and these heavy chains on, right? And like we've been black our whole life. We know microaggressions when we see them, and we know when white people don't have nothing nice to say to us and they start overly complimenting us on things that don't make sense. That's all he had to say. He picks up the guy's chain and he's like, oh, this is heavy. I got to make me enough money to get me one of these. What is he saying about you? Think about it. This man, Donald Trump, is looking you in your face, complimenting your heavy ass chain. I got to get me enough. He's literally making fun of how you're spending your black dollar. If Donald Trump wanted a heavy ass Cuban link chain, let's be real, it'd be around his neck. So I'm also listening to what he's saying to and the
from
things
money
that
he got from donations because he ain't made that money except from the donations.
Nah, I didn't tell you what account he was going to pull it out of. I said he could get one. But I'm just saying, just the way he tells you how he values you when he speaks either to you or about you. The scary part, though, with the Trump campaign is this is not the first time we've seen Donald Trump be racist. And not just to black people, to any other minority. And we're still sitting here on our second election having a conversation. And this is the thing that I say about it. What is he getting right in terms of the marketing, the messaging, the whatever, whether or not he's securing large amount of votes, he's got something. He's getting... Amber Rose is idiotic as I think she is. Don't think for not one day Amber Rose put on them Cuban links and that MAGA hat for free $99. You know what I mean? There is still a little bit of something inside of that campaign or the people who run it that also understand the importance of social media. And that little piece is what I wish that we were getting. Yes, there are the spaces, but we all know as content creators that the message is only as real as the reach. You could put 500 videos out. if the people aren't seeing it, if they're not falling on the right side of the algorithm, so what? Like,
Yeah.
Well, it's how the campaigns are it's not the campaigns, it's how the super PACs are choosing to spend their money. And the reality is the Biden campaign runs a very ethical operation. And that's just the unfortunate nature of it. When I say ethical, I mean like, literally they invited content creators over waves to come to the White House. And we had to pay for it. Like I was lucky enough to get an invite to one. They invited like 5 different groups of people. I was in one group, but I had to pay everything. I had to pay in DC. I had to pay for a $900 hotel because they didn't tell me until 2 weeks before. I had to get a $700 flight, and I had to feed myself the whole time. I'm just saying, right? And so, so
but
all
is
of
that
that.
counterproductive to this economy that we're in? That like, okay, go ahead.
But
You're
the
smart.
point is that there's a lot of rules around how you can spend campaign funds, and the Biden administration is following every single rule. And I'm not saying I don't know if that's happening. If Amber Rose is getting paid to promote, I'm just saying.
Right.
No, that
But
makes
I
sense.
agree with you, and that's how we have to find a way to ensure that funding happens. That's why I mentioned for Jasmine, we got to find a way to get the Black Spirit News and all of us at this DNC in August, and
Right.
find a way to get it financed so that we can be there and we can make this trending. We can make it known to everyone in our networks what is really happening on the real floor of the
Well,
DNC.
I would definitely use my resources, Zach, to get that out, because that will be major. Because people who follow you, people who follow Zach and Tiffany, they know what they're coming with, without question. So at this point, we're gonna just do. We're gonna get ready to get out of here. I know Zach is gonna go live on TikTok. Zach, can you tell everybody where to follow you on TikTok?
Yes, you can come to. It's called The Activist. DACTIVIST. So it's like activist with a Z in front of it. The Activist. And I'm going to go live, and anyone come on, and you guys join in as a request to be a co-host, and then I'll add you in, and we can talk and just kind of chat about some of the issues that happen, and talk about some strategy, some steps for the upcoming month of July, how we can hit this hard and turn the tide around the messaging and also around the narrative for
El,
our communities.
where can they follow you?
Jess L. Murataki, JUSTELEMURASAKI.
And that's everywhere?
Twitter, it's L. Murataki because Jess was too long.
And Tiffany?
Double D Mother. Across all social media platforms, just put in Double D Mother. There's no other Double D Mother. It was not supposed to be this way, but that's my name, okay? But Double D Mother across all social media platforms. Just Double D and Mother, MUVA. Type that in. I'm the only one that's gonna come up.
Well, I want to.
That's a tagline for you, though, Tiffany. Double D Mother. There ain't no other. Okay, coming with the Black Spirit News.
Well,
you're right.
I want to thank you all for being here today. Kenny wanted to be here. I thank him too for trying to get here.
Yeah, he's with his car. He had a car. He is having car trouble.
Right.
He just texted me.
And I want to also thank
you tell him, Zach, that it's his fault because he talked about my air conditioning last time, and now he the one with the problem. Text him that. I'm gonna text him actually when we get off of here. Like, look at you.
I want to thank
Jasmine. Text him that.
I want to thank Jasmine Harris for being here, the director of Black social media for the White House. She was wonderful. Thank you, Elle. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you all for just having this time. I want to thank my audience for being here. I really and truly hope that you learned something. If you have any questions, I'll put this in my description after this live. I guess I'm just going to go and do it while I'm sitting here. But I just really want everybody to really think about this election and where we are, because it's very important, right? It's always important, but this is important. And we all we got. So we got to make it work.
At the end of the day, when the day ends, we all we got.
That's it. So you all sit back for a minute, but I want to thank everybody for being here, and we will let you know when the next conversation will be and who the next guest will be. And I just want to thank everybody, the panelists, and also everybody that has logged on to Millichan TV. Y'all have a great Sunday, have a good weekend, and a great week. Bye.